Hey history buffs! In today's video, you're a visitor to 1941 Warsaw, and you won't survive because this place turns lungs into bellows, hearts into ration books. Keep your eyes down, says Rózsa, a girl with a kerchief knotted so tight it lifts her eyebrows. She smells like coal dust and winter apples that never ripened. And keep your hands in your coat. Pockets have legs in here. A German sentry taps his boot against a tin brazier. Sparks jump like gnats. Beside him, a blue police sergeant rolls a cigarette with paper too clean for this street. Between them, a man clutching a violin case, arguing softly about a pass. The sergeant is bored until he isn't. He lifts the case and lets it fall. The sound it makes, wood and hope cracking together, turns your throat into a locked door. Rózsa tugs your sleeve. You brought zloty, bread coupons, anything? You did. Not enough. Never enough. She palms a coin, slides it into the sergeant's boredom like oil into gears. The gate swallows you whole. The smell hits first. Cabbage boiled thin, the sweetness of rot, wet wool. Somewhere a radio murmurs Chopin under a blanket. Somewhere else, a baby coughs like a match trying to strike. Are you ready? Rózsa asks. Because in here, daylight is a race. Losers go hungry. A bell clangs farther in, echoed by a shout, "Soup! Last ladle!" She starts to run. Do you keep up, or do you stall at the violin splinters under your shoe? Courtyards stack like bad dreams. Windows bloom with faces and frost. You follow the line curving toward a soup barrel that sweats steam like a guilty man. An old woman wraps the ladle against the rim. "Tin first," she barks. "No tin, no soup." A boy of 9, hair shaved to outsmart lice, holds a dented mug. "For my mother," he says, and means for both. 2 spoonfuls, a watery page torn from yesterday's cabbage story. Behind you, a hand slips into your coat pocket and meets your hand already waiting. You pinch knuckles. The pickpocket laughs, a dry, papery sound. "New," he says. "You smell like outside." 200 calories, Rózsa mutters, counting steps, counting ribs. If you have a work card. If you don't, you learn talking to walls. At the back of the yard, a window opens to a whispering shop. A loaf appears, small as a fist and darker. Sawdust bread. The baker's eyes say, "Don't look at me," while his hand says, "Quick." A policeman turns his collar up, watching the clouds instead of the street, because the street is complicated, and clouds are obedient. The boy with the dented mug bumps your knee, and your gut clenches around nothing. "Go," Rózsa says. "Follow me." She lifts a cellar hatch, and the smell of damp earth climbs out like a ghost. 3 minutes to the wall. No talking. If you hear shooting, press your teeth together so you don't bite your tongue. You climb into the dark, feet slipping on brick dust, heart drumming a tune without a conductor. Above, boots tromp past like punctuation. Ahead, a faint rectangle shines. A cut in the wall barely wider than a pillow. "Your turn," she whispers. "Or do you prefer the cue?" The hole is a throat of scraped brick. A child would slide through like a ladder under a door. You are not a child. Rózsa shows you how to flatten yourself. Shoulders like paper, hips like apology. "Exhale," she says, demonstrating with a snake-smooth shrug. If you stop, you're stuck. If you're stuck, you're loud. If you're loud, she doesn't finish. Your coat rasps stone. Lime bites your wrists. On the far side, the Aryan street hums a different pitch. Tram bells, bicycle spokes, a dog that has never smelled hunger. A boy of 7 wriggles past you, going the other way, cheeks bulging, sweater lumpy with smuggled onions. He grins around a mouth of contraband. Fast, he hisses, faster. A whistle blows, one note, not a song. The boy freezes, then becomes a shadow among shadows. You feel the tug of your own choice like a hook behind your breastbone. Retreat or commit? You commit. The wall scrapes the breath out of you, then coughs you onto clean cobbles where winter feels less personal. Back in 2, Roja says, already walking like she belongs. On this side, she's a servant girl on errands, eyes low, steps quick, a scarf hiding yesterday. In a doorway, a woman glances at you and then away, guilt folded neat under her tongue. The shop smells like yeast and cinnamon. Bread loaves parade behind glass like saints in a procession. You reach. Roja pushes your hand down hard. We buy with silence, she whispers, placing coins and a wink that's really a password. A paper bundle lands in her basket. Walk. Behind you, boots, faster than the tram. The whistle again, closer, eager. The boy with onion cheeks bolts from a gate. 3 policemen suddenly fascinated by a running child. He darts, slips, almost flies. Don't look, Roja orders, steering you back toward the wound in the wall. If you look, you'll try to help. If you try to help. A shot snaps the air, then the second loudest sound of the day. The silence that follows. Are you still breathing? The cellar swallows you again. In the dark, the bread smell is a cathedral. Don't squeeze, Roja warns, as if you're liable to crush the miracle. Your knees find every brick that ever existed. When you climb out, the ghetto light seems thinner, as if it passed through cheesecloth. On Zamenhof Street, a clinic occupies a school's bones. Desks become cots, chalk dust becomes fever. Dr. Mira meets you with hands scrubbed red and a stare that weighs your soul and your scalp for lice. Wash, she says, pointing to a tin bowl where the water believes in ice. You dunk your head. The cold is a slap and a promise. Around you, coughing arranges itself into chords. A young man holds a thermometer in his teeth and a book about Goethe in his hand. Culture, he mumbles around the glass, the only thing they can't ration. Mira cracks a lice egg between her thumbnails and wipes her fingers on a cloth already full of endings. Vaccines, you ask? She smiles, the way a door smiles before it slams. Water, she says, sugar, soap when the angels deliver it, and kindness. A knock, not a patient's knock, authority's knock. The clinic exhales. A man with a brown armband steps in, ledger under one arm, eye sliding off anything that bleeds. Inspection and lists, he intones. Everyone in the room becomes smaller, except Mira, who grows. We have nothing you want, she says. The inspector flips a page, bored. His hand pauses over a name. Yours? No, today it's a boy from the Lefke who stole potatoes with his sister. The inspector taps the line with a pencil. Work permits save lives, he says. Work permits are limited. Then you'd better work fast, Mira replies. People are dying faster than you can count.
The inspector looks up at you, curious. "And you?" he asks. "Are you working?" You open your mouth. What job could possibly keep you breathing here?
"Bread," Rosa answers for you. "We're delivery." She flashes the paper-wrapped proof. The inspector's interest rolls off like rain off tar. Outside, a wagon clatters by with barrels labeled soap that everyone pretends to believe. A dog sniffs the wheel ruts and sneezes. She leads you into a room full of warm air and ambition. David the baker is big in the way ovens make men big, forearms floured, cheeks smudged, eyes kind in a careful way. "Sawdust is for fools," he mutters, which means he uses a little sawdust and a lot of lies. "You knead until the dough forgets it's hungry." He shows you how to fold in contraband like forgiveness, sunflower seeds, a handful of rye, the last of a memory called yeast. "You can't eat courage," he says, "but it flavors everything." The door bangs. 2 men with armbands enter. One chews a toothpick like it wronged him. "Quota," he says, "and tax." David nods, sets aside 3 loaves like offerings. His mouth smiles. His shoulders don't. You help slide bread onto a peel, the oven's heat stroking your face like a cat that might also claw. Sweat beads under your cap. Outside, a siren lifts its skirts and runs. "Hide," David says, almost gentle. He lifts a flour sack and points to the shadow under the bench. You fold yourself in, mouth already full of dust. Boots, voices, a laugh that knows no jokes. "Bread is for workers, and for the German army." A loaf thuds against the table. Another thud. The particular sound of a slap. Your tongue tries to write your name on the roof of your mouth. "Please," David says, "there are children." "Children eat when trains are full," the voice answers, amused. The boots retreat, the door closes. The room breathes again, slow and ragged. David lifts the sack and looks older. "Do you see?" he asks you softly. "Do you see how your hands shake even when the room is quiet? Do you admit it?" On the way to the Judenrat office, you step over a line of pigeons pecking at something that isn't food, and farther down becomes a poem. The office is a hive with all the honey taken. People swarm around windows that never open, buzzing names and dates instead of wings. A clerk wears a visor to make his eyes narrower. He calls, "Next," without looking up. The man in front of you removes his hat as if exposing his scalp is a currency. "Work permit. For me. For my wife." The clerk consults a list like a priest consulting God and unfortunately getting an answer. "No," he says. "Limited." A ring appears on the counter, gold tired of being a circle. The clerk's fingers hover, then fall. A rubber stamp kisses paper with a wet, corrupt sound. "Next." Roja nudges you forward. "Courier," she says quickly. "We're assigned." The clerk's eyes flick up and catch on your face like a fish on a nail. "Name?" You give the one you've been using. He finds it, a line through it. "Ah," he says, "already allocated." He looks almost sorry, then remembers he's late for the train he pretends he won't catch. "You should have come yesterday." "Yesterday we were alive. Today too if you move your hand." The clerk considers the ceiling's paint for guidance. Somewhere outside, a cart rolls toward Umschlagplatz, squeaking like a mouse dragging a cathedral. The clerk sighs, dips the stamp in ink again, and pauses. "Do you understand what the paper costs?" he asks. "Yes," you say. "But do you?" Night arranges itself with habit. Candles squat in bottles like old men on benches.
In a basement that smells like chalk and hope, a school resurfaces. No loud vowels, the teacher whispers. She is 30, or she is 80. War wrinkles both ways. You sit on a box that used to carry herring and now carries grammar. Children trace letters on their knees. Aleph, they mouth. Bet. A little girl recites a poem about a river that won't freeze, and for a minute, nobody is cold. Footsteps comb the street above. The teacher keeps going, voice steady as soup simmering. History, she says, and the word is an invitation and a verdict. Once there was a city. It had a wall before it had a wall. A board creaks. The class freezes into statues that breathe. The teacher slides a scrap of paper into your palm. A map? A list? If they come, she says, you will give this to a man named Ringelblum, or to anyone who knows that name. If they don't come, you will still give it. The footsteps stop at the drain grate. A metal clink. A cough. The little girl keeps her eyes on the poem, mouth moving like a prayer wheel. Continue, the teacher says. And the lesson does, how to hide a book under a coat, how to hide a person under a book. The steps move on. The room releases its held breath all at once and laughs, a sound halfway between relief and madness. Tomorrow, the teacher says, same time. Will there be a tomorrow? The door to the archive is a wardrobe panel that forgot its original house. Inside, a table, 5 chairs, and a purpose. Paper multiplies like winter clouds. A man with a trimmed beard and eyes like a ledger, Ringelblum, leans over a map of the city, his finger tapping streets that outlived their names. We are burying a civilization. We are not dead yet, therefore we can write. Around him, a choir of scribes hums with pencils. A woman transcribes a rumor with the care usually reserved for births. A boy who used to sell newspapers now files documents under letters that mean hunger. Rosa slides your scrap onto the table. Ringelblum reads it, nods once. You'll take this, he says, handing you a stacked sheaf, receipts, recipes, a drawing of a courtyard where the snow remembered how to fall. Milk cans, a man murmurs from the corner, or boxes, not too shallow. Rats read faster than historians. A small laugh passes around, nervous and tender. Right, Ringelblum insists. Numbers are bones, stories are flesh. Without both, no one will believe us. He looks at you as if you are a witness drafted by time. Can you describe the sound of a wall built around a heartbeat? A knock. 3 quick, 2 slow. The door opens to boots and a wind that smells like gun oil. Not Germans. Your heart forgets what it was doing when you see armbands, not blue, not brown, white with red. Underground. A woman with cheekbones sharp enough to cut rope nods at Ringelblum and then at you. We need couriers. We need hands that don't shake. Do yours? The square they call Umschlagplatz doesn't bother with metaphors. It's just a place where space becomes smaller and names become numbers. Train cars squat with their doors like jaws. A German officer checks lists with a fountain pen he probably got for his birthday. Resettlement, someone says, the way you'd say weather. A poster shows a farm and a sun that won't set. A rumor says the sun is a furnace. You are there because the woman with the knife cheekbones said, "See." She stands beside you like a truth you can't unlearn. Watch how people move when the word is tomorrow.
They move like this, slowly, as if slowness adds days, quickly, as if speed outruns fate, stubbornly, as if stubbornness is a shield. A mother lifts her child into a car while still telling him a story about a bear who loved honey. The bear is you, the honey is gone. A shove, a shout. Your name leaps from a page into a mouth you don't recognize. A hand clamps your elbow and pushes you toward the open car. The metal steps are cold and indifferent. "Hey," a voice says low in your ear. Not you. A yank. You stumble backward into a thicket of bodies that smell like wool and fear. The hand belongs to a man with eyes like flint and a coat that hangs wrong because there's a gun inside. "Marek," he says, "you'll forget my name before you sleep, but don't forget this. The trains don't come back." Behind you, the door slams. The train lurches. A baby cries, and then doesn't. Marek's fingers leave bruises around your arm shaped like the word, "Stay alive." Do you ask him how? How, you ask, tasting rust on the word. You learn to be two people, Marek says, steering you into a doorway where the light hesitates to follow. One who is here, and one who is already remembering it from somewhere else. The second person keeps the first from drowning. The great deportation peels the city like an onion no one wants. Streets thin, voices disappear mid-sentence. Corners that used to contain friends are now only corners. Dawid's bakery opens with the same key and a different silence. 3 loaves on the shelf like survivors who can't explain it. His apron hangs from a nail, arms empty. Aunt Basia, she made you tea once from herbs that grew in cracks, stands in a stairwell with 2 children clutched to her skirt, her own and someone else's. They take families. They take orphans. Today, I choose. She presses the stranger child into your arms. She keeps the one with her eyes. You don't remember how to breathe until after she turns the corner. At night, the ghetto learns to listen to train schedules. The tracks hum under the skin of the city. People begin to sleep with their shoes on and their names in their pockets. The rumor grows teeth and becomes a sentence. Treblinka, a place with no street back. A place where smoke learns your birthday and doesn't care. Marek spreads a map made from memory and courage. January, he says. We tried something small. They bled. We bled. It mattered. He presses a pistol into your palm. It's heavier than your last 10 thoughts. Will you shoot or will you write? Do you know the difference anymore?
The pistol's grip is cold and gritty, like shaking hands with the river at night. Marek walks you through the ritual, safety, breath, the way the world narrows to a doorway and a heartbeat, and the unkind idea that you might change either. January arrives, like a knife wrapped in cotton. Work details march toward the square, and 4 figures break ranks with the boldness of people who have already died once. Shots erupt, small in this city of big noises. The column scatters. A boy in a flat cap grabs your sleeve. He pants, "Run or fire, but don't stand still." You fire. The recoil punches your palm and introduces you to a version of yourself you won't invite to dinner. A German clutches his thigh and screams a word that used to mean mother and now means target.
People pour into doorways, into cracks, into the idea of safety. After, your hands won't open. Marek pries the pistol loose like a dentist coaxing a tooth. Good, he says with a grimace that nearly remembers how to be a smile. Now you know the cost. You throw up in an alley that smells like everyone's secrets. Roja finds you there and holds your head like it contains something worth saving. First time? She asks softly. You nod. She presses a quarter loaf to your lips. Eat, she says, or the memory will eat you first. Somewhere, boots learn the geography of revenge. Doors crack, orders are barked. The city flexes its ribs, wondering how many can be broken and still cage a heart. When you finally stand, the alley has rearranged itself into a corridor that leads nowhere but forward. Do you follow? Marek's people, tailors by day, magicians at night, draft the plans. Cellars into lungs, says a woman with wire in her hair and a measuring tape around her neck. Will breathe under their feet. You carry bricks that used to be a school, a shop, a joke. A boy named Ulick threads electrical wire through the bones of the building like a cat threading courage through sleep. Air shafts here, he says, tapping a chalk X. Trapdoors disguised as tablecloths. If they sniff, we'll stink like dinner. In a courtyard, men practice with bottles filled with gasoline and faith. The bottles look like cousins of the ones that will someday hold the archive. Mira arrives with bandages boiled and reborn. When fire comes, remember, smoke is a language. Read it or choke. Night. You crawl into the new earth like a second birth. The bunker's ceiling is low enough to teach humility. Someone strikes a match. The flare shows faces waxy with focus and fear. A little shrine appears. Candles, a photograph of a wedding where no one knew the date would be important. Ulick tests the ventilation with a candle. The flame dances, then flickers, then bows. More, he says. You twist a pipe, whisper a prayer to whoever oversees air. The flame straightens, a cheer, small and enormous. We live, Marek says. And for a second, the word means only air. Above, the city creaks like a ship, distant, too distant. Someone plays a violin that survived another day. Then a new sound arrives, creeping under the door like fog, the color of brass, the clank of tank treads, hunting cobblestones. April is coming, and it's bringing fire. Are you ready to burn, to stay human?
Dawn arrives in pieces, each shard catching on the torn edges of rooftops. Passover Eve. Someone has hidden a matzah under a floorboard for the smell alone. On Zmanova, fighters in mismatched coats check magazines with thumbs numbed from a winter that refused to sign the armistice. Marek's whisper is a wire pulled tight. Positions. You climb to a roof that remembers laundry days and gossip. Now it hosts bottles of gasoline, stoppered with rags, a crate of stolen grenades, and a prayer or two. Roja kneels beside the chimney, her cheeks sooty, a revolver heavy in her small hand. If I drop this, don't tell my mother, she says, and grins like a dare. Then they come, columns in field gray, helmets like punctuation points, a half-track snorting smoke. The first rank advances with the assurance of men who have always been obeyed. A voice below barks Polish through a megaphone until the accent chokes it. Jews, out with your hands up.
The megaphone waits to be obeyed, then looks puzzled. Marek's arm slices down. Bottles fly like furious birds. Fire blossoms wet and bright. It clings to the half-track as if it has finally found a friend. Shots crack, ours, theirs, the city's knuckles. A German leaps, rolling. His coat is a torch, screaming. The column buckles. For the first time in this story, they retreat. On Muranovska, a flag rips upward as if punched up by hope. White and blue that smells of distant deserts. Red and white, the color of a promise kept too late. They'll hate that, Rozier breathes, eyes bright. A bullet chips the parapet near your ear. You taste grit and panic. Marek fires, measured, the way a surgeon cuts. Down, he says. They'll bring the flame. From the south, a flamethrower coughs, then speaks its only language. Fire takes the roof edge and crawls fast, polite, but deadly. Do you run, or do you learn to breathe smoke? Heat peels paint, then skin from nerves you didn't know had opinions. You and Rozia belly crawl toward the hatch as sparks flicker in your lashes. The flags keep waving as if the wind won't take no. Below, the street is a bowl of noise. Boots retreating, boots returning, shouted commands, a scream that begins like a note and ends like arithmetic. You drop into a stairwell where the air is soup. A door opens. An old man thrusts out a bucket. Water, he says. It's mostly apology. You hurl it anyway. Steam billows, theatrical. The fire isn't fooled. On the landing, a girl shields a canary cage with her body, as if the bird is Torah. Roof roots done, Marek decides. Cellars. He touches your shoulder, a quick press that says we are still here, we are not ash yet. Across the square, a German climbs a ladder with a machine gun like a second spine. A sniper on our side, some tailor whose stitches have gotten very small, picks him, breathes, fires. The man pitches backward like a puppet whose strings were burned. A cheer rises, wild, cracked. You feel it in your teeth. But the flamethrower tilts, hawks a longer tongue. Fire catches the flagpoles. The white and blue gutters, stubborn. The red and white cranes its neck. Below, a boy in a flat cap sprints from shadow to shadow like a comma refusing to end the sentence. He's carrying replacement cloth, rolled under his jacket. Cover him, Rozia says. She leans out, sights, shoots. Your shot follows, late but true. The boy climbs, hands blurring. He ties new red-white into the sky with a knot that looks like a promise to the future. Then the half-track's gun swivels toward him. You have one bullet left. Do you spend it now?
You spend it. The barrel jerks, the boy flattens. The bullet meant for him bites brick. Rozia whoops, then yanks you by the collar. Doctor, she says, we'll need her. The clinic has changed jobs without changing rooms. Cots become triage. Mira moves like a metronome set to grief. Smoke inhalation left, bullets right, she orders. If you can walk, you can carry. If you can't, you can pray. You become hands. A man whose beard holds the smell of last week's onions trembles under your grip as you ferry him down. Above, someone drags a piano into the street to make a barricade, plays 2 defiant chords, then abandons the keys to the fire's clumsy fingers. A ceiling groans. Plaster sneezes down. Out, Mira barks. You lunge, grab the tin of sulfa like it's the last seed in winter. The ceiling sighs and then quits. Dust turns the room to milk. Coughs bloom like flowers with bad timing. In the bunker, air is suddenly a rationed commodity. You can feel its price rising. Ulek shoves a rag bucket at you. Wet it, he hacks. Teeth, tongue, cloth.
Smoke likes amateurs. You obey. The damp cloth tastes of iron and cellar. Above, new boots, different cadence. Tear gas, or worse, Mira says. Someone pukes from fear, someone from the gas. The floor gets slippery with humanity. A can clatters down the stairs, hissing. Marek kicks it back like a lethal tin can game and slams the trap door. The gas has other doors. Vents, Ulek croaks, and you crawl after him toward the breathing pipes as the world narrows to the space between your lips and cloth. When the gas finds you anyway, your vision quilts itself into squares. Do you trust the map in the dark? The bunker map is chalk on a breadboard, drawn in a hand that shakes only after it's done. This wall hides a throat, Ulek said. Break it, and the next building swallows you. You swing the hammer. Each blow is a clock. Mira counts between hits, so the rhythm won't carry upstairs. 1, 2, whisper. 3, 4, breathe. The bricks give like old teeth. Cold air kisses your knuckles from the other side. A boy passes the archive canister through first, as if paper must breathe before people. Careful, Mira says to him, to you, to history. You wiggle through. The new cellar smells of coal and betrayal. Someone kept a sack of flour down here just in case hope needed thickening. Roja shoves you from behind, and you land on your ribs, laughing because the alternative is to start crying and never stop. Then the loudspeaker starts again, syrup thick over barbed wire. Come out. You will not be harmed. The voice has all the sincerity of a cat at a bird convention. People look at each other with the hunger of doubt. A woman with a baby tied to her chest tightens the knot and stands up. Marek's gaze nails the room to calm. No, he says. We saw the square. We saw the trains. No. The woman sits. The baby dreams of milk that isn't smoke. A man near the wall clears his throat. My brother went yesterday, he whispered. He waved. Maybe there is work. The word work whimpers like a kicked dog. Work for the fire, Mira says. Decide with your eyes open. Silence. Then a scrape, someone moving furniture that will be kindling. The loudspeaker repeats its lullaby, and above it, another voice. Stroop, a name spat more than spoken. Order is to burn the block. Do you understand that this is the plan now? Not a disaster, but a method.
Understanding doesn't help, except to clarify the shape of pain. The Germans don't conquer streets, they evaporate them. Fire snakes along beams as neatly as handwriting. Smoke finds the shortcuts. We learn to live in the underline. A boy named Hennig volunteers to test the rumor that the school tunnels reach the bakery. Dawid will hide us, he says, with a faith that doesn't know David's empty apron. He tightens a scarf around his nose and vanishes into a crawl space that used to hold onions. You count to 60. You count to 100. And Eek doesn't come back. A few decide to try the loudspeaker's mercy. Rosa bites her lip until it bleeds, watching them climb. A woman adjusts her hat as if leaving for work, and you love her for it, and then hate the world for making you love her like that. They go. A minute later, shots tick the air like hail. Marek doesn't say, I told you so. He looks older by a year, you can see. You hold the archive can like a baby that weighs history. We bury tonight, you whisper to no one, or to God. Ringelblum's pages rustle inside, impatient. From the next room, Ulek's voice. Sewers, I found iron steps. He shines a light into a hole where the city's intestines show. The stink climbs up and slaps your face. Prosta Street exit, he points on the chalk map. Maybe. Maybe is a door with a handle, Marek says. We'll try it when dark is loud.
Above, the flamethrower hesitates, then makes up its mind. Will the sewers take you or keep you? Dark is never dark enough when buildings burn. The sky is a dull bruise that refuses to heal. You tie rags around boots for quiet, for luck. The sewer lid needs a prayer and a crowbar. Ulek provides both. It rises with a burp of foul blessings, and the hole exhales. You descend into a throat lined with slime and memory. The soundscape shrinks, water muttering, distant thumps that might be artillery, might be God moving furniture. Your flashlight is a new moon held in your hand. Behind, Mira counts heads like rosary beads. If you lose the person in front, you follow the wall. The wall always knows where it's going. Rats discuss politics in the corners. One climbs a pipe like a climbing rope and regards you with the frankness of the unimprisoned. You try to be grateful for witnesses that won't write reports. At the first fork, Ulek scratches an arrow in the slime with a nail. Left to Prosta, right to who knows. You go left. After 20 paces, the water deepens and gets ambitious. The baby whimpers, then sighs in a sleep that the world does not deserve. Up ahead, a ladder. Blessed iron. You go up. The lid is sealed from the outside and smiles at your effort. Boots scrape overhead. Voices. Polish, German, the universal dialect of bored men with guns. Blocked, Ulek mouths. Next exit, Marek says. Quiet. You go back, knees complaining in a language your soul doesn't translate. Right fork then. The map redraws itself under your palms. And then, light. Not above. Ahead. Wavering, as if the sewer itself is thinking of a sunrise. Who else is down here?
You douse your flashlight, become ears. The light ahead sways, stopped, sways again. A cough, muffled. Marek squeezes your arm twice. Friend, foe. The sewer answers with a smell only fear bothers to notice. Cheap tobacco, leather too well oiled. Not ours. Back, he breathes. But the baby chooses this moment to test air pressure with a small, broken trumpet of a cry. The light snaps toward you. A voice snaps with it. Flash. Your cheek runs with heat, then blood. Bullets make the water kick like startled horses. You go to your stomach, become brick, become darkness. Marek fires twice in reply. The tunnel thrums. Grenade! Someone hisses up ahead, and the word is already rolling. Ulek does the only wrong thing that works. He charges forward, kicking the grenade deeper, body between it and the baby. The blast is a god with bad manners. It punches water into your lungs and tries to erase your name. Silence. Ringing. Then voices, theirs, retreating, cursing. Marek drags you by your collar, hands sure in a world that isn't. You feel Ulek's leg under your palm where it shouldn't be. He's laughing. Tell the sewer that I want my knee back, he wheezes. You reach a side channel, low as regret. You stuff yourselves into it, a string of beads forced through too small a hole. Behind, light returns, sweeping, inquisitive. It finds nothing but dirty water that has decided to keep your secret. When you finally climb a different ladder, the lid gives like a promise kept. What street is worth dying on tonight? You emerge into a courtyard that doesn't remember your name. Unfamiliar laundry lines, strangers' windows, a sky different only because it is above you now. Someone's soup goes on boiling, as if nothing is on fire. as if soup is the answer to every verb. The building across wears a black mask of soot, the next one a crown of flames. Rosa isn't here. She was behind you. She isn't behind you. You scan faces, the baby, Mira, Marek, the man who believed in loudspeakers. No Rosa. Your ribs constrict until they creak. Round up by the pharmacy, a boy offers, seeing your panic and wanting to be useful to it. Blue police, Trauniki boys. They're taking anyone who runs alone. Pharmacy, you repeat as if saying it grants geography. Marek wipes the sewer from his pistol. 2 minutes, he says, in and out. Noise buys us time, fire buys us cover. He hands you a bottle with a ragtail that wants to be a comet. The pharmacy's windows have learned to duck. Inside, shelves line up obediently, offering jars filled with Latin and dust. In the back room, men herd 6 people into a corner with the efficiency of butchers and the relish of amateurs. Rosa stands among them, chin high, eyes throwing daggers that bounce off leather. Distraction, Marek breathes. You step out, light the rag, and lob the bottle toward the street, where it breaks into a flower the color of revenge. Shouts carom. One guard peels off. Marek ghosts in through the side door, pistol whispering twice. 2 men fold like bad chairs. You rush Rosa. She swings once at a jaw that won't regret it long. Then a shot from the doorway answers your audacity. Ulek takes it in the meat of his thigh and sits down hard, surprised rather than hurt. Again, he says, mournful and brave. Mira's hands are already red. Do you have a medicine for this hour?
Medicine speaks in shortages. Mira inventories aloud like a spell. Iodine, 2 ampules of morphine, a fist of sulfa tablets, gauze that used to be a wedding shirt. No penicillin. That's a rumor with a white coat, she says, tying a tourniquet with the authority of a general. We'll need sulfa and more hands, she adds, eyes on Ulek's leg, voice on your spine. And if anyone knows a miracle, fetch that too. Pharmacy on the Aryan side, Raja says. The owner once sold my uncle aspirin at a discount. A hero. Marek considers the sewer tunnel like a chessboard that bites players. Too hot, he decides. Use the wall cut by the bakers. You go with Raja. The hole breathes pity when you enter, brick rasping your shoulders like a grandmother's warning. On the Aryan side, the air has the indecency to be clean. Bicycles clack. A woman on a balcony waters a geranium without looking toward your hole. You become other people. A housemaid late with butter, her cousin the porter. Raja's Polish sharpens to a different music. You practice not flinching. The pharmacy's bell tinkles like nervous laughter. The pharmacist blinks at your story, then at your money, then at the war adjusting its tie behind you. He produces sulfa, bandages, a bottle with a chipped label. For pain, he says, eyes on your eyes, for trying. When you turn to go, a man in a good hat steps aside too politely. Outside, he is suddenly attached to your shadow. Blue police, bored and curious. Cousin, he says lightly, where is your butter? Do you have a lie left? You have a lie, but it's a thin one, and this man likes fat lies that drip. Sold out, you say, showing the empty basket like a badge. Mrs. Wilczek will scream. You wouldn't want to hear it. Even I don't want to hear it, and I'm family. He smiles. I love a good scream, he says, and taps the basket's false bottom with the knuckle. The medicines murmur to each other. He doesn't insist. He's not that kind of curious today. He's the other kind.
Walk with me, he suggests, as if you're old friends who agree about everything. Raja slides her arm through yours, becoming chatter. Did you hear about the dancer, the one with the Russian hair? She fell in love with an officer who eats only oranges. She laughs. The policeman watches the sound move through the air like a cat watches dust motes. At the corner, a tram clangs. The policeman's head turns and you slip. Not your feet, yourself. You let your shoulders round, your gaze drop, your soul tuck its shirt in. You become invisible by practicing it so hard it shows. Cousin, you gasp, pointing to nothing just beyond him. He turns, habit stronger than suspicion, and you pivot with Raja into a doorway, then down 3 steps into a coal room that has forgotten its own address. The hole to the ghetto is behind the stacked sacks. You push, the sacks complain, the hole yawns. Above, the policeman whistles a tune about having all day. You wriggle back under the wall as if returning to your own skin. Will the medicines arrive before the blood decides to stop negotiating?
Mira meets you at the trap with hands already moving. Sulfa, she says the way some people say hallelujah. The pain bottle becomes measured mercy. Ulick's jaw unclenches by degrees. He told you, he mumbles, this knee hates me. The bunker breathes through its pipes like an animal sleeping on its side. Outside, the fire writes a letter to the sky, and the sky pretends to read. Merrick spreads a map of which buildings are still buildings and which are suggestions. Mila, he says, tapping. 18. They need munners. Anielevich? Rosa asks, and the name lands like a bell in a quiet church. You volunteer your feet. The route is a necklace of bad ideas threaded with courage. Cellar to cellar, a crawl space that steals your hat, a yard where a dead horse has become an address. You pass a group praying in 3 languages, the words braid into a rope they grip. On Mila Street, the smoke clears its throat. You cough and reply. The bunker entrance is not a door, but a decision. A sentry with eyes older than his face checks the password you don't have and the look on your face you do. He lets you in. Inside, cramped authority. Men and women crowded around a table that belongs to another era. A map crawls with pins. Anielevich stands with his palms flat, as if feeling the city's pulse through the wood. He looks like a boy punished for growing up too fast and refusing to apologize. Reports, he says. You give yours. Flags, fire, sewers, small victories, large math. He nods, eyes on a place you can't see. They are burning us out, so we will fight where fire can't climb. He glances at a stack of letters, and we will write to people who haven't been born and ask them to carry us. A blast shivers dust from the rafters. Someone shouts from the entrance, "They've found the vent!" Do you run messages or stand and make one? You stand because your knees forget how to bend. The first grenade tumbles down the ladder and meets a blanket soaked in piss that smothers like a champion. The second bounces. A boy named Shlomo fielders it with a bucket, kicks it back. It pops upstairs like a rude guest abruptly remembering another party. 2 groups, Anielevich orders, voice steady, eyes fever bright. 1 to the sewer, 1 to the roof if it still exists. He looks at you. You're the sewer. You take letters, thin knives wrapped in paper. They weigh nothing and everything. Rosa presses a kiss to her fingers and taps your sleeve with it. For luck, she lies. The sewer mouth is an embrace you don't want and can't refuse. The ladder rungs are damp promises. Behind you, footsteps crowd, then stagger. A woman slips, sobs once, keeps going. Up above, The Germans switched languages from command to celebration. Something up there pleased them. Something down here keeps going anyway. At the fork, left is blocked with new bricks that look smug. Right slopes deeper. Water hugs your shins like a relative you don't like. You hold the letters high. At a junction, voices ahead. Polish this time, accented differently. Underground home army? Or a trap wearing a familiar coat? You croak the password you were given at Mila, and the answer comes back correctly, tired and sharp. A hand closes around your wrist and pulls. You spill into a chamber where men in civilian coats carry weapons like briefcases. One of them, mustache, eyes that have measured distances others missed, takes the letters. "Good," he says. "London will listen, maybe not fast, but listen." He squeezes your wrist once more, human. "Do you want the way out or the way back?"
The way back, you say, because your feet have learned the street's grammar and your heart left its coat on a chair in the ghetto. The mustachioed man studies you like a measurement. "Then take this," he says, sliding you a packet wrapped in waxed cloth. Addresses, passwords, a warning for anyone still believing in trains. He gestures to a manhole map drawn in pencil and rain. "This one opens near Franziszkanska. Watch for patrols that like to practice stepping on dreams." The chamber smells like damp wool and secrets. A courier with bicycle grease on his cuffs. Kazakh to some, to others just the person whose knock doesn't get you killed. Points out rhythm patterns of patrols, how to count 10 heartbeats between lamplight swings. If you lose count, he says, start again. Pride is slower than bullets. You slip the packet under your shirt, where your lungs argue for space. The men nod, as if benching you into a different league. "If you make it," Mustache says, "tell them the city is listening. Not enough, not fast, but listening." You descend again. The sewer remembers you rudely. By the time your head butts the ladder into the ghetto, your arms are noodles and your courage tastes metallic. You push the lid. The courtyard meets you with an expression like, "Still? You?" Rosa is there, as if she never left the corner of your eye. She taps your ribs where the packet rides. "You brought back thunder wrapped in paper?" Maps, names, timing. Merrick scans the first sheet, jaw setting. "Tonight we pulled 2 families to the Aryan side. Tomorrow we don't promise." He hands you back the packet, lighter by a leaf. Deliver the rest to Mila. Above, a new voice drips from a megaphone. German-made patient. "You cannot win. Come out." You fold the paper smaller. "We already did," you mutter. Will the ladder to Mila still be a ladder when you get there? Mila 18 is a heartbeat under dust. The sentry waves you down with a mouthful of smoke and a gaze full of calculations. Inside, the bunker hums, pencils rasping, someone's cough knitting with the clink of magazines. And Yelich looks like he hasn't slept since the last pre-war summer. He takes the packet, flips pages with the speed of someone walking through rooms on fire. "Good," he says, pointing at crossings, at names that have become verbs. "We have air left in the north shafts, less in the south. Ammunition is stories we tell the guns to make them hope." He scratches a note to the Aryan side, then another to the world that will read us later. He hands you a sheet for Ringelblum, a paragraph that refuses to be a farewell and yet is one. About fighting when fighting is a way of saying we existed. A runner bursts in, ash-faced, flamethrowers on Zamenhof, tanks at the brush factory. They're sealing cellars. His voice breaks on sealing as if it were a child's name. And Yelich's jaw tightens. Rotate groups. Send 2 to Dawid's alley, 2 to the school tunnels. Nobody dies alone. He stops you with a palm against your chest.
Tell Mira we need ether or lies that smell like it. And tell Marek, tell him this isn't about winning. It's about choosing how to count the minutes. A tremor runs through the timbers like a nervous system. Dust sneezes onto the map. Someone laughs too loud, then clamps a hand over their mouth as if catching a bird. You pocket the letters. Up the ladder, the air is a bad joke told twice. The street is narrower, the sky nearer, as if the buildings are leaning in to listen for your footsteps. Do you take the long, safe route or the short corridor that knows your name?
You take the short corridor because the long one might learn to miss you. The corridor learned your knees last week. It remembers where you swear. Halfway through, you hear a sound like a saw biting wet wood, the flamethrower hunting doorways. You freeze, become timber. The nozzle sniffs the crack under the street door and moves on, unsatisfied. You run. On Muranovska, a group of fighters hoots you into cover. The old singed tailor among them, his eye laid on a rifle like it's a hem he can fix. "Ambush at the corner," he says. "You want in?" You want out and in and home all at once. You hand him one of the passwords and keep the rest. "Another time," you say. He grins without teeth. "There isn't." At the brush factory, wire fences quiver like nerves. People cling to them from the other side. Work card refugees, now trapped between order and fire. Guards pace, bored until they aren't. Marek appears from a hole that wasn't there yesterday. He says, "We can cut 5 out, 10 if we invent new lungs." You hold the fence with wire cutters that feel like a promise and a sin. The steel sings. A guard coughs. Mira's voice floats from the dark. "Quiet is a medicine. Take more." 5 come through like letters slipped under a door. The 6th catches her coat, curses in a grammar ancient with rage. You free her, skin tearing, cloth or yours, you can't tell. Shots pop like corn in a pan. You all scatter into different recipes for living. From the roof, a flare lifts, green as envy. Who is it summoning? Help or the next catastrophe? The green flare means 2 things, a German signal and also a private promise you made with Ringelblum. Green tonight, we bury. The archive room tastes of glue and prayer. Milk cans squat like metal pumpkins, their bellies hungry for paper. You and 2 others feed them. Ration cards annotated with jokes, the bakery ledger with comments in the margins. Dawid owes hope. A child's drawing of a cat that looks suspiciously like a lion. Ringelblum's hands are steady until he writes the last line of a note addressed to anyone who will ever eat bread again. He folds it, seals it with wax pilfered from a cemetery candle, and slips it into a jar that used to hold pickles and now holds a civilization. Outside, the earth pretends to be indifferent while accepting the weight. You dig where the fig tree once suggested shade. The soil smokes from yesterday's flames. It smells of everything it has had to swallow this month. You lower the cans like children into sleep. "Remember this corner," Ringelblum says. "Remember the broken pipe and the chipped brick. Memory can lose addresses." He taps your forehead with a knuckle, gentle and insistent. "Tell anyone who crawls from tomorrow." Shovels pat dirt to hush it. Footsteps fence the alley. You hold breath. A patrol pauses, coins clinking in a pocket. One of them spits. Another says something about sausages in a tone that makes them sound obscene. They move on because chance decided to be merciful. The earth looks the same. It is not. What else do you bury before the night buries you?
You bury a photograph. Roja at 12,
both ears visible, tongue out at the camera because her father asked for a serious face. You bury it under a loose brick in the school cellar and memorize the brick's chip shaped like a teardrop. She tells you, find it when this is a story. Her voice, a thread that refuses to break. Ulek's fever climbs like a bad singer reaching for a high note. Mira stares at the red line as if she can knock it down by glaring. She says, abscess, and the word turns the bunker colder. She boils a knife and a prayer. Hold him, she orders. Hold him like you love him and like he'll hate you for a minute. You do. Ulek curses you with the inventiveness of a dock worker until the pain crests and breaks. Pus spills, of victory the color of defeat. He passes out. Mira doesn't. We'll live a little, she decrees, binding like a sailor. Above, the city practices collapsing one block at a time. Forced to ground, you learn to tell which timbers are about to resign. Marek counts cracks. He says, when this one goes, we move to the seamstress's hole. The coin's ping is answered by boots. Gas again, a new recipe. You press rags to mouths, eyes squeezed. Somewhere a baby fails to cry, which is worse than crying. After it clears, a whistle. 3 short ones, 2 long. The signal from the Aryan side. Kazik's bicycle bell chimes once like a heresy. Do you follow it now, or stay to make another hour? You follow because the whistle drags your bones like tide. The manhole lid is stubborn. 4 hands make it listen. The air above has a different temperature, indecently free of ash. Kazik waits in the artery of a street that pretends to be asleep. He smells like cold metal and haste. He says, 2 carts, one to the woods beyond the city, one to a safe flat. Choose who rides. Choosing is a verb with thorns. Mira picks the worst wounded without apology. Marek points at a boy whose bravado has begun to cost. He says, you're loud. Go be loud somewhere they can use you differently. Roja shakes her head when you touch her arm. She says, my mother. She was last seen near the brush factory cellar. If I leave and she pounds on a door and I'm not there. She swallows. I stay. You stay. Kazik doesn't argue. He's practiced not saving everyone out loud. He says, tomorrow, if there's one. He pedals away, carts creaking, fighters folded under sacks like inconvenient thoughts. Back underground, you find the seamstress's hole exactly when Marek predicted the beam's resignation. Dust billows, a picture frame hits the floor and busts open a summer of 3 years ago. A laugh escapes someone like a bird flying into a wall. Night coughs into dawn. Which name will the morning answer to? Rescue or erasure? May 8th. The city's calendar rips off its pages with a steady hand. Mila 18 buckles under a slow, deliberate storm. You are not inside when they find it. You're 2 courtyards over, counting potatoes that aren't, and you hear the change in the air before the news arrives. A tightness, a suggestion of absence rehearsing. A runner staggers in, hair singed into confession. They've found the main vent. They're pumping gas. People are inside. The commander. He can't finish, which finishes the sentence. You and Marek sprint a route you could run blind. The street is a throat-swallowing smoke. At the hatch to the bunker, men claw at earth with cutlery and fingernails. The wood door below is stuck or barricaded from within by the dead or the determined.
Back entrance, someone yells, and another voice answers, buried. The air tastes of bitter almonds and endings. A man stumbles up, eyes red as raw meat, coughs out a name that's all consonants and grief. He said we did what we could, that it mattered. Merrick puts his forehead to the ground as if eavesdropping on God. Then he stands, face set to a new geography. Leadership's gone, so we become dozens of leaders. You pound once on the buried door, a salute, a late knock at a house that changed addresses. Do you turn from this grave to guide the living, or keep digging at the door that won't open? You turn, furious at survival and faithful to it. Word ripples, small groups, new rendezvous, passwords retired like exhausted soldiers. They send photos to their bosses, then find another pocket of us unraveling their captions. Kazik appears from a drain like a rumor made flesh. His eyes tick across faces, landing on yours, on Rosa, on Yulek, who insists he can limp fast. 40, Mira repeats, calculating which 40 buys the future most days. The route, through the sewers to Prosta, then surface sprint to a gate where a truck waits with coal dust for camouflage and a driver with nerves taut by poverty. You teach your breaths to be thin, your feet to be forgettable. At the ladder, Rosa's fingers lace yours. If we get separated, I'll leave a sign. 3 chalk dots, low on the left. She taps your wrist thrice. Low, left. Don't look high. Hope grows near the ground. Down you go. The sewer is kinder tonight, or else you've learned its mood swings. At Prosta, the lid shifts. Air rolls in like a weak apology. Kazik peeks, counts, signals. Now! You spill into the alley, become a shadow parade. The truck's bed is a black mouth. People climb in, fold into coal. The driver grunts, a prayer and a curse. The gate guard saunters towards his own boredom. Then the baby, always a baby in these stories, decides air is an insult and cries. Does the guard hear? He hears, but he hears other things louder. The rumble of a tram, the radio in the guardhouse burping waltzes, the sound of his own thoughts making change with his future. He frowns, then yawns, then tampers with his cigarette like it's at fault. Kazak's hand hovers on the truck's side, a conductor halting an orchestra with a look. The driver eases the truck forward, ignorance first. Coal dust billows, a sooty cloak. The gate nods it through as if rubber stamping the night. You and Rosa are last. Her foot slips on the bumper, you catch her waist and shove, then sling yourself after. The tarp drops, a theater curtain drawn on a miracle no one will applaud. Motion. The truck clatters over cobbles that have memorized too many stories. Under the tarp, breaths choreograph themselves. Someone's knee digs into your ribs, you forgive it preemptively. 2 blocks, 3. A shout behind, random or relevant. The driver doesn't accelerate, he slumps into an impression of a man with nowhere special to be. It works. You feel the city tilt, just slightly, toward mercy. At a courtyard a mile that feels like a century away, the truck backs in. Doors open. A woman with a kerchief ushers bodies into darkness, counting in a whisper that refuses to be less than a prayer. She says, 41, surprised and stubborn. We will be 41. Kazak's eyes meet yours. He points back toward the ghetto with his chin. Again tomorrow, he says, knowing tomorrow is a rumor standing on matchsticks. Do you go back again, or let the dark keep you?
You go back because betrayal tastes like clean air. Also because Rosa chooses to. My mother, she repeats, wearing the words like armor thin as paper. You thread the sewer's intestine again past places that remember your shins personally. In the ghetto, the fire has revised entire blocks into footnotes. The sky above is open where roofs were, and rain, indecently late to the season, starts to fall. It hits hot bricks and turns into a smell like cooked stone. People hold out buckets, mouths, anything that catches. You find the brush factory cellar a mouth choked with rubble. We dig until the wall tells us to stop, Marek says, already on his knees. You scoop with hands, with a pot lid, with desperation. The wall tells you to stop by collapsing a little. You rearrange belief and keep going. From under a beam, a sound, faint, human. Here, Rosa cries, slicing her palm on a nail and not noticing. You lever wood with a crowbar that remembers ships. A face blooms from dust, unrecognizable until the eyes do the math. Mama, Rosa breathes, and the word is an entire religion between two people. You haul her free, bones angry, but intact. Mira counts breaths, listens for the whisper of internal bleeding. She lives, she pronounces, and for a minute, the bunker is the whole world, and the world is bearable. A shell lands too near, and the building across wobbles, indecisive. Where do you take the newly rescued when every address is burning?
You take them to a place you used to call dangerous and now call home, the seamstress's hold. The room smells of cloth and fear and the human insistence on mending. Sheets become bandages, then ropes. Merrick plans a crossing to the house opposite, its attic window like a mouth trying to form a word. Rope bridge, he says. 2 lines for feet, 1 for hands. We move the invalids first because the universe doesn't know how to be fair without help. You knot linen with a sailor's concentration. Roja's mother watches with eyes that blink in Morse code. The first crossing is Mira herself to anchor the far end and to prove the rope believes in doctors. She moves hand over hand, legs on the lower line, a spider teaching grace to fear. Then the boy with the dented mug, the one who asked soup for his mother months ago, volunteers. He's taller and thinner now, courage sticking out of his sleeves. Halfway across, the rope groans. A bullet nips the rope, more suggestion than bite. But suggestion is enough. Fibers sing as they separate. Faster, Merrick hisses. You feel the song in your fingertips as you belay. The boy lunges, rope yelps, and parts. He falls the short distance with a long sound, slamming onto a balcony that holds. He scrambles, swears he meant to do that. People laugh, hysterical relief that tastes like tears. Your turn to cross, with Roja's mother clipped to you by another rope. Below, a courtyard blooms with sparks. Above, the sky refuses to pick a color. Do you trust cloth and knots more than floors and fire? You trust what your hands made, because betraying them would break something you can't glue. Hand over hand you move, hips swinging. The old woman a feather made of bricks against your back. Heat teethes your ankles. A rifle coughs from somewhere you can't argue with. You keep going because pausing is a synonym for falling. The far window eats you and your burden. Merrick catches the old woman with a competence that should have been paid a salary in peacetime. Roja follows, palms bleeding in a way she won't notice until you point it out tomorrow, which is a way of promising tomorrow exists. Julik arrives last, limping, rope burned black where he gripped. He grins at you like mischief survived its own death notice. This knee, he says, and then the building behind you, the one you left,
sighs the way a very tired giant might, and sits down. A cloud of dust rolls through the gap like an audience unsure whether to clap. Silence slaps, then sound returns in shards. A woman sobbing because she didn't die. Someone praying because someone else did. Merrick counting heads as if numbers can hold a wall up. We move again, he decides. We keep moving until they run out of fire or we run out of streets. Outside, the megaphone announces something about the end, about order restored. The voice is pleased with itself. The city's answer is a rumble traveling gutter to gutter. And then a date rips itself across your spine. May 16th, a rumor that they will end this with a boom that writes itself into stone. What will you do when the biggest silence arrives with a fuse?
May rubs ash into its knuckles and pretends to be another month. Patrols now move with dogs that don't believe in prayer. Marek divides us again. Pairs, never singles. Windows are mouths with teeth. He gives you a task that feels like choosing a vein. Locate a sewer exit no one has breathed in yet, north, where the map is more rumor than fact. You and Rozha crawl through a loft where the rafters still remember laundry. Rain pecks the roof like a clerk adding columns. Below, Germans herd a line of captives. A boy reaches for his grandfather's hand and finds only sleeve. Beside you, Rozha knots her fingers until they creak. If I had 2 grenades, she whispers, one for them, one for me. She unclenches, breathes, but I have only hands. In the stairwell, a door opens on a man in a hat too clean for this block. He smiles at you the way a weasel smiles at a rabbit. I know a place, he says, for a price. Your price yesterday was 2 lives, Marek says from behind him, pistol level and very tired. The man's smile collapses into paperwork. He chooses to be someone else and disappears down the stairs. You find the iron ladder by listening, a draft that smells of wet coins, a hollow in the wall where sound changes color. The cover lifts. Sewer air kisses your teeth. Tomorrow, Marek decides. Tonight, we're out of night. From the west, church bells test the air. Their music crosses the wall like contraband. What will the bells be ringing for in 3 days' time? 3 days buy you 1 more corridor and a few more names. The dogs learn new tricks, so do you. You smear onion under your nostrils when the gas comes, bite leather when the pain does. At noon, a plane gossips with the rooftops. Its chatter strafes the street, punctuation made of lead. A woman drops to her knees and finishes tying her son's shoe because dying with laces undone feels like defeat. Night again. You lower into the sewer with the careful joy of a thief who knows the house. The water's complaint wraps your ankles. Ulick, pale but standing, grips the rung and mutters to his knee like a coach. 1 more game, he bargains. The baby has gone with Kazik. The quiet he leaves behind is its own kind of noisy. Left, then right, then a section where the roof has collapsed and the prison presses down like a bad thought. You belly through, ribs filing a report to headquarters. Ahead, a hatch breathes generously. This one opens by the tram depot, Rozha whispers, consulting a map someone drew on a synagogue program now greasy with handling. You surface into an alley where coalboys once argued over marbles. 2 silhouettes detach from shadow. Not ours. Your gun is up before your heart knows. Easy, a voice says.
Armia Carva, we've come to collect your ghosts. He hands you a sack. Inside, bread not made of sawdust, onions that won't be smuggled, 2 vials labeled not in Latin, but in hope. Tomorrow, bigger pull, he says, unless you're all smoke by then. Will the truck be on time in a city that eats clocks? The truck is late in the way saints are late, arriving exactly when the faithful are almost done believing. Rain loosens ash into paste. The gate guard is new. He overperforms his role like a student actor. Kazik leans on the horn. 2 short, 1 long, the rhythm of a dare. The guard steps close, eyes on the paperwork, not the tarp. He sniffs. Smells like hell, he says. Coal does, and Sunday stew. The driver shrugs. The guard grins at his own joke and waves them through. A mercy bought with grease and theater. You don't ride. You run parallel in the dark because numbers never add up, and someone will need a distraction. Halfway to the rendezvous, a patrol appears with a map said empty. Roja's hand finds yours, squeezes once, then lets go. You veer into the open, shouting in a drunk's wobble. "Hey, you dropped your honor back there!" 3 heads snap, boots follow you, not the truck. You turn corners the way a river chooses stones. A dead end rises like a punchline. You drop, flatten, slide under a half-collapsed fence into a courtyard full of laundry making a last stand. The patrol clatters past, curses bouncing off walls. You breathe through the smell of someone else's shirts. When you return to the rendezvous, the truck is a rumor, already fading. Kazik crouches with his head in his hands, counting the ones who didn't make it to being missing. He looks up at you. "Tomorrow," he says again, the word a plank between shipwrecks. How many tomorrows can a siffy stand on before the water wins? That night in the seamstress's hole, you and Roja lay out your pockets like tarot. A button, a pencil nub, the photograph of her at 12, tongues and ears defiant. Her mother sleeps with her mouth open, catching dreams. "If we die," she says, not bothering to lower her voice, "and they find us, will they read us right? Ringelblum will scold them from the dirt if they don't," you answer. She smiles. "I want to bury something of mine where the city can't edit it." She writes on the back of the photograph, her name, the nickname only her mother uses, the way she hates boiled carrots but eats them anyway. She presses the paper under a loose tile, low on the left, 3 chalk dots beside it. Above, a fox of a rumor slips under the door that the Germans have saved something special for the finale. A show, someone snorts. The word curdles. Mira tightens a bandage, watches the angle of Ulek's fever like a sailor reading stars. Marek cleans his pistol in silence until it becomes philosophy. "We choose our last address," he says. "We choose our witnesses." He looks at you, then at Roja and her mother. "And we choose who walks beside whom." Outside,
The night leans in, as if it wants to hear what last words sound like before they're said. What would count as a witness big enough to hold this ending?
Morning, May 16, limps in, tired of smoke. The city is mostly edges now. You feel the change in the soldiers before you see their plan. They stroll instead of stalk. They set cordons like theater ropes. A car arrives with an officer whose coat fits like a sentence. He looks toward the edge of the ghetto where a building that used to be the great synagogue lifts its dignity above the ruin. Today, someone whispers, they'll end it with God. The idea is obscene. It also feels correct in the logic of men who need a photograph to staple to a report titled Victory. You are too far to stop anything and too close to be spared seeing. Wires snake like lies across the street into the building's belly. A priest walks by, eyes down. He makes the sign of the cross in a tremor that doesn't fix anything, but insists on itself. A German kneels to twist a cap with the ceremony of a wedding. Marek's hand finds your shoulder and squeezes. Not comfort, confirmation. You remember, he says, the sound. Roja's mother whispers a prayer that mixes Hebrew and the lullaby she hummed when Warsaw was still a word for home. Roja squeezes her mother's fingers and raises her chin in a fight posture that fools no one and needs to fool no one. The officer raises his arm. What does a city sound like when someone thinks they can blow the last of it away?
First comes the pause, the false, airy quiet before a door slams. Then the crack, a whip long enough to wrap the block twice. The synagogue sighs into itself, a giant turning over in sleep, and then leaps upward into dust, stone becoming cloud, history becoming shrapnel. The shock wave hits late and rude. It slaps you against the wall like a scolded child. Windows half a street away release their glass in a sigh. Pigeons forget how to be pigeons and draw crooked letters in the air. For a heartbeat, the city is all white noise. Then the details return like guilty guests. A roof tile spinning to a stop. Smoke discovering a new way to be black. A torn page from a prayer book performing acrobatics before kissing the gutter. That, Marek says hoarsely, is what they want the photograph to sound like. He smears dust across his cheek and grins, wild, lopsided. But we're still arguing with their caption. In the alley behind you, a boy laughs the laugh of someone who didn't. The laugh becomes a sob without stopping to change clothes. Mira pulls him close, his head vanishing under her chin, and rocks him because there are no words that don't taste of ash. The officer lowers his arm. Somewhere, a camera clicks. Will the picture outlive the ones who refuse to be in its frame? After the boom, the method keeps going. House by house, cellar by cellar. Germans pose in doorways as if they invented doorways. The Stroopman, no need to say his name in full, signs a paper with a flourish. There is no more. He hasn't met your particular no more. Kazac's last big run is tonight. If the city has a throat left, we'll slide down it, he says,
tapping the manhole diagram like a gambler wrapping his lucky coin. 40 if we stack you like laundry. The driver is the same man with the same shrug. The gate guard is a different boredom wearing the same coat. We gather bruises, books, bandages, a violin that survived by learning to be small. Roja's mother leans on you. Her breath counts in the language of stubborn lungs. Marek insists he will guide the second group and meet us after the turn by the tram barns. You don't argue. You nod as if nodding is a spell. Down we go. The water is higher, angrier, as if the explosion knocked loose a choir of drains. The baby on this run doesn't cry. His eyes glow like two wet coins. At Prosta, the lid resists. Kazakh mutters, cajoles. It gives. The truck waits, flatbed yawning. Bodies pile like secrets kept in bad hiding places. The driver slaps the side. Enough, he says, lying professionally. More. Do you climb or do you stay? For Marek's hand at the turn.
You stay because the word again needs a witness, and because Marek's hand has dragged you out of rooms you didn't know how to leave. The truck rumbles away, a moving rumor. You count to 60 in sewer speak. You count to 100 because 60 didn't deliver him. At the turn, the water carries a hat that looks like his and isn't. Two shapes loom, not Marek. German boots, their owner curious about drains that talk. You back into shadow so tight it becomes you. They shine a lamp and find only the city's bile. They move on, bored by the part of the story that doesn't salute. You wait longer than the instructions said sanity allows. Then footsteps behind, the rhythm your bones know. Marek slides into the junction with two strangers who look like the country's hands. He says, lost the others, found these. He grins, exhausted. The sewers are hiring. At the exit, the lid sticks. It always does at the page turn. Together, you convince it. Night up top is cool as a lie told well. No truck, only an alley, and the possibility of feet. A door opens that shouldn't. A woman with flour on her sleeves, Dawid's neighbor, squints, then sees the shape under your ash. She says, inside, risking everything like she's ordering bread. Will her kitchen be large enough to hold your entire impossible now? Her kitchen smells of yeast and law-breaking. A crucifix tilts over the stove like a conspirator. She pushes you through to a pantry that pretends to be bigger than it is. You'll be ghosts, she says briskly. Quiet ones. She pours water. You drink and remember what your throat is for besides shouting. Papers rustle. A man arrives with a satchel of names. If anyone knocks, he warns, you speak only Polish and only about sausage. He hands you a Ken card that calls you by a name you tried on once as a joke. Practice, he orders. Say I come from Radom. Say my aunt is ill. Say nothing about walls. Rosa combs coal from her hair until she reads as brunette. Her mother practices being small. Marek stares at the crucifix like it's a map. He decides, we go south, Waver, then woods if the city spits us out. The woman bakes something that isn't bread, but pretends. She says, You'll leave after the tram bell. The driver drinks. He won't count. She presses a packet into your hands. Yeast, salt, a folded paper icon. For later, for always. Outside, a knock. Not ours. Everyone becomes furniture. Police, a voice sings. We have information. How long can a pantry hold its breath? The pantry holds as long as the woman's heartbeat will let it. She opens the door on a smile like a bar of soap. Plain, clean, slippery. Officers, she trills. Come in, step out of the rain. Boots leave water runes on her floor. A blue policeman inspects her cupboard with the zeal of a man who wants to discover he was right to knock. Baking late, he asks. She shrugs. My husband likes roll mops at odd hours. He smirks, opens the oven. Heat slaps him, carrying only dough and saints. Modic's finger counts the seconds against your wrist. 30, 40. Your neighbor was taken, the other policeman offers, fishing for conversation or guilt. The baker. Your breath pauses for Dawood. The woman crosses herself, genuine grief in the motion. He was kind, she says. The city eats kindness first. The policeman softens, a dangerous shape. He nods, pretends to remember a different errand, and leaves. Silence leaks back in. The woman sags, then straightens. Tram, she says, go. She stuffs coins into your palm like ammunition. On the platform, the world tilts toward ordinary. People complained about potatoes, about rain, about wrists. You hang on the strap and practice not staring at uniforms. At the next stop, a boy jumps onto the running board, looks in, catches your eye, and taps his cap twice, a signal you don't know. Do you get off now with him, or trust the plan through Waver? You follow the cap. Plans have been burning all week. At least this one's moving. Off the tram, into an alley that smells of wet rope. The boy speaks without turning his head. They're watching your stop, he says. Your faces are learning to be brave in a new way. Come. He leads you through courtyards that argue about laundry, and past a church where a woman lights a candle for someone who won't answer. In a back lot, 2 bicycles lean as if listening. Can you ride? He asks. You can. Rozha can. Her mother cannot. Marek shakes his head at the math and starts to build a different equation. A handcart appears, piloted by an old man with knees like hinges in need of oil. For the ant, he grins, and you understand you are telling the city one big story, and it enjoys adding footnotes. You set off, 2 on bikes, 1 on the cart. Marek pacing like a shepherd who left his crook in the last century. A patrol turns into the street at the far end. The old man coughs theatrically, stops, argues with his axle as if it betrayed him. The patrol detours, offended by inconvenience. You roll on, hearts clacking like spokes. At the bridge, the river lifts its brown shoulder and pretends innocence. Can water forget what it carries? South of the city, trees start remembering how to be green. A safe hut waits where the map said maybe. Pine boards that exhale sap, and a stove that makes a promise it can keep. The woman there, freckles, jaw, set like a decision, boils chicory and calls it coffee. Papers tomorrow, she says. Today you sleep or remember. Choose. You choose the thing that looks like sleep and tastes like memories with their shoes off. In the night, you wake to Rosa sitting by the door, the photograph in her lap. If they find the cans, will they know how to read our handwriting? They'll learn, because we taught them to. You think of Ringelblum speaking into dirt, or Anulevich's letters like torches that burn without oxygen. You wish for a pen and wonder at yourself. Morning brings papers that tell a new story about your face. Merrick's name becomes something that could buy bread in daylight. Rosa's mother puts on a kerchief, not because she needs it, but because habit is a bridge. Woods, then maybe south, then maybe the rest of a life. A sparrow lands on the sill and scolds you for making the world complicated. Is this safety? Or just to quiet her edge of the same cliff?
Weeks later, because weeks still exist if you count by heartbeats, you circle back with Kazakh to a city that's missing parts of its own face. Not to live, to mark. The corner with the fig tree stump is now a geometry problem. The chipped brick is somehow still chipped. You kneel. The earth listens. The woman with flour on her sleeves appears, carrying a loaf you didn't order. I keep track, she says simply, of holes, of names. You scratch 3 low dots on the left of the cellar door where the photograph sleeps. Rosa presses her palm to the chalk, leaves a print, leaves silence behind that means more than noise. She tells the wall, "We'll come for you." And you realize she means the paper and the person she used to be. In a churchyard, a man in a good hat digs too carefully for a gardener. He winks without looking up. "One egg Shabbat," he murmurs, as if naming a holiday and a crime. A can rises from the ground, dented, decorated with rust. He doesn't open it. He kisses it like a relic. Kazakh taps your shoulder. Time. The city is not a place you can love without planning your exits. What will the can say if it ever breathes again?
Years later, because sometimes the story refuses to stop, you stand in a room where glass listens and climate controls rehearse kindness. Hands with white gloves cradle a jar that came from a place that tried to erase glass, and hands and jars. A curator reads aloud words you once carried under your shirt while sewers decided not to kill you. Ringelblum's sentences walk out of the dirt like survivors late to their own party. A child points at a drawing of a lion cat and laughs because it looks like hers. You move along the case and stop. A small photograph, corners foxed, a girl with both ears showing and her tongue out because her father asked for seriousness. On the back, a handwriting you could pick out of a crowd says a name, a nickname, and a complaint about boiled carrots. Beside it, 3 chalk dots copied from a door that no longer exists. Rosa stands beside you, older in the obvious ways and in the secret ways that only people who carried fire in their lungs grow older. Her mother's kerchief is folded in her pocket like a passport from a country that no longer issues them. Marek's absence occupies a space between you large enough to lean against. "Will they read us right?" Rosa asks, not whispering now. Glass cannot answer. But somewhere under the city, a pipe still hums, and in your ears the rumble sounds like a question knocking from the other side. What will you do with what we dragged through the dark to hand you? So, what will you carry out of here, and who will you become because of it?